So you're about to have your first vocabulary test after about a week of words. So we want to go through and review our words to make sure we got our information. Now remember, geometry vocabulary, it's not just knowing the definitions. You need to know the definitions. You need to be able to recognize pictures of it. You need to be able to use notation properly. So all of that is part of vocabulary in geometry, not just knowing the words and being able to write a definition. So let's take a look at what we've got going on here. So here's some of the words that we were starting off with. Things like linear, pair. Well, actually, let's go a little earlier. Got a whole nother list here. A line. Well, we talked about a line. We said a line is a collection of points along a straight path. Okay, so we need to know the definition of it. We need to be able to draw an example of a line. And we need to be able to write its name in symbol form. Okay, so that's all the things you need to do for each particular one of these statements. A segment, that's a collection of points between two endpoints. Okay, so picture of it. There's our segment. You could call it a line segment. And our notation. A point, we said a point was a little weird because it's more of just a location. Okay, and our picture of a point is very simple. I'll call it point P. And really, when we name a point, we just name it with the letter. Array is a collection of points from one endpoint in a direction. So with array, we're talking something that looks like that. Another point on it. I'll call this ray AB, and notation for it, AB. Make sure that your rays, the first letter of the name, is the letter that starts the ray. Okay. Midpoint is a point that breaks a segment into two congruent, I'll use the congruent symbol here, segments. So if you've got segment AB and point M is the midpoint, remember we show congruency by putting the little dash marks, okay? Either one on each one, or you could do two on each one of those. Just something to show that it's the same. And we would call that midpoint M, okay? Collinear. Collinear means three or more points on the same line. Okay, an example of collinear points, if I've got a line and we got points P, M, and Q. Those are collinear. Concurrent. Concurrent is three or more lines intersecting at one point. Okay, so if I've got lines crossing like this, call this L, M, and N. There's point P, and we talked about some vertical angles and things like that from there. So that's what we mean by concurrent lines. Okay, whoops, all of that is not on there. You got it after collinear, didn't you? There you go. I'll slide that up. Totally missed it. That wasn't on camera. Okay. Construct. Might want to pause here and get those missing pieces. So we got our midpoints. We got collinear. Concurrent was the next thing. Construct. Construct means to use a compass and straight edge to create accurate drawings. Okay. Key there is compass and straight edge have to be used, and accurate. We're not just doing sketches. Length of a segment. Remember we said length of a segment? If I've got segment AB, and it is a length of 5, then I'm going to say AB equals 5. And what that reads as the length of segment AB is 5. Okay, so understand the difference between the length of a segment not having any symbol and a segment having a symbol over it means we're talking about the figure. Okay. An angle, 2 rays with a common endpoint. Okay, so drawing ourselves an angle here. Remember, the angle is really what's in between. And I'll call this P, that one Q. I'll call our vertex A. And remember, naming an angle, we can name it by just the vertex, or we can name it using 3 points where the vertex is the middle of those points. Okay. You can only name it with a single vertex if it's the only angle that has that vertex. Okay. There's no other angle with that vertex. A straight angle is an angle that measures 180 degrees. Okay. Yes, a line is 180 degrees, but the line is not 180. The angle that makes the line is 180 degrees. Supplementary, 2 angles that sum to 180. And the sum is very important there. Don't just tell me it's 2 angles that are 180. Or don't tell me supplementary is 180, because a straight angle is 180. Supplementary are 2 angles that sum to 180. Complementary, 2 angles that sum to 90. Okay. We talked about vertical angles created when 2 lines intersect. And note on this, these are congruent. In a picture, you get that X. You guys are pretty good about realizing when that happens. There's our X. There's our 2 intersecting lines. So our vertical angles are these 2 here, and then the tops and bottoms are verticals as well. Okay, so we got 2 sets of vertical angles when that happens. Adjacent angles, angles that share a vertex and a side. That's what makes adjacent angles. Just a couple more terms to get out of this, okay? You can see my notes from classes. These are how I take notes. Hopefully you're doing this as well. Just to show you an example of good note taking. Linear pair. We said a linear pair are adjacent angles that sum to 180, or adjacent angles that are supplementary. You could write it that way as well. That's completely acceptable. Parallel lines, 2 lines. Let's draw a picture of our linear pair real quick, just so we have that. There we go. So those are linear pairs. 2 lines that never intersect. Okay, so we've seen that. A line and another line. And we'd said that you could mark parallel lines by putting the feathers on it. Okay. All right, so looking at the last of these terms, we've got transversals. We said a transversal is basically a line that cuts through 2 lines. Get the mouse out of the way. A line that intersects 2 or more lines. And we said transversals become really important when they cross parallel lines. Okay, so if these are my parallel lines, there's my transversal. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. And that's when things get really interesting, because alternate interior angles, and just really think about alternate. We said the interior part was inside the parallel lines. The alternate was on either side of the transversal. So alternate interior lines is no real definition unless you want to write it, but we're looking at this one and then this one and that one. I'll use two curves. And remember, alternate interior angles are going to be congruent when they're cut by parallel lines. That's why I marked them with the same symbols here. Alternate exterior, same idea. There's my parallel lines. There's my transversal. So I'm going to alternate the transversal, but I'm going to be on the outside. So here, and then jump the transversal on the other outside, there. Same thing here, and jump on the other side of the transversal, still on the outside of the parallels, and there. Corresponding angles are a little different. Means they're in the same place. So if I've got one on top and to the right of the transversal, then my next one is also on top and to the right of the transversal. Could do the same thing with a few of these, here and there. Okay, I'll mark those with little dashes so we can keep them separate. I'll mark these in green. I've got this one and that one. Okay, and then I've got this one here and that one there. Those are my corresponding angles. And those will also be each congruent to each other, to their matching angle. And in same side interior. Same side interior was a little different because remember, they're not going to be congruent to each other. So they're on the interior, so on the inside. And we get here and there. That's one set. And then here and here is the other set. And remember, same side interiors will be supplementary. Okay, so there's a few vocabulary words to learn. All right. I know this video was a little longer than some of the others, but it's no work to follow on. You just need to make sure you got all these terms and that you're ready to understand these terms, ready to see them on a test, ready to be able to recognize pictures of them as well. Okay, happy studying, and I will see you tomorrow.